Under Trump, this kind of government will perish from the earth. I don't mean to scare you. No, wait, maybe I do mean to scare you. If Trump returns to the White House, you can kiss these freedoms goodbye that we all take for granted. And elections, forget about it. That's over. That's done. If he gets in, I can tell you right now, he will never leave. He will never leave. You know that. He will never leave.
Elections, forget about it, says washed-up former A-list actor Robert De Niro. But what says Sean Spicer? Sean Spicer is the host, of course, of the Sean Spicer Show right here on the First TV, Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Sean, thank you so much for joining us. As you and I both watched this just clown car destruction from Robert De Niro and the Democrat lawfare complex playing out outside of the courtroom of Justice Juan Merchan in New York City earlier this week. You know, we've talked about the lawfare already on this show. What are the politics of this? I mean, is this actually going to work out for the Democrats? Seems like kind of a Hail Mary to me.
Oh, it's a huge Hail Mary. You see the guy in the back, by the way, the black gentleman over De Niro's left shoulder. He is the comms director for the Biden campaign. This was clearly, I mean, I cannot believe the level of incompetence. The idea that you would show up, you haven't shown up in 5 weeks, and suddenly you show up on the day of this court hearing and make a big spectacle like this. This was a massive unforced error, and it proved the Trump campaign's point that this is all political by the very nature of the campaign folks showing up, and secondly, by the fact that that you've got the comms director for the campaign standing behind him. So it was really, I frankly, they had tried to keep this notion that it was political out of the dialogue for a while. This just literally gave the campaign on the Trump side the perfect talking point when it needed one desperately, just in terms of the nature and the narrative. So I cannot believe look, here's my guess on this, by the way. There was a big Politico headline yesterday saying that the Dems were freaking out, their words, not mine, about how this campaign is being run and the concern that a lot of leading Democrats have about the current poll numbers. This just gave further concern to that same group of people. I wouldn't be surprised to see a shakeup at the top levels of the campaign in the next week or two. More likely than not, what I would see is like some kind of babysitter coming in where they say that they're bringing in an old hand, a Rahm Emanuel, if you will. Somebody comes in and says he's going to be the new chairman or something like that. But these guys are making unforced errors at a critical time.
Yeah, no, they're making a ton of unforced errors, and they're making it right out in the open, and they are freaking out, as the Politico article described in luscious and quite vivid detail. And, you know, the Biden campaign is in Philadelphia this week. They're in Pennsylvania while Donald Trump is being confined to this courtroom in New York City. So what is the play there? Are they trying just to gin up black support in Philadelphia? Are they trying to reassure the black demographic? I mean, when they look at the current polls, when they look at the stunts they're polling, this Hail Mary thing with Robert De Niro, what is their move, just to try to get enthusiasm and voter turnout from historically Democratic groups like black voters, millennials, groups like that?
Yeah, it's twofold. The first is that logistically it's easy. Right. I mean, this is their go-to. If they need to go somewhere, you go to Pennsylvania. I mean, you see this every week. It's like on the way home for him when he goes to Delaware, to the beach, or to his house. So it's logistically easy. Two, it's part of what they call the blue wall, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. They have to win. I mean, I don't see how there's any scenario to get to 270 if you don't win one of those three, if you're Biden, right? So that's it. And then look, and then to your point about they know that they are eroding support among black men in particular. You've seen Trump at the end of the last election, he was about 8%. Right now, he's polling just north of 20%. That's a concern from them. You think about these urban areas, the states that I just mentioned, Detroit and Michigan, Milwaukee and Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania. Just to put this in context to people, the 20 electoral votes in Pennsylvania were won by Trump by 44,292 votes, which is 0.72% of margin in 2016. Biden won Pennsylvania, according to the official record, by 80,555 votes. That's 1.86. This is going to be a close state. And so, as I said, the bottom line is if you think about that blue wall, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, well, it's just easy, to always be going there because it's 20 electoral votes. That's more than Michigan's 16 and Wisconsin's 10. It's the big prize. And it's just easy for them on a Friday to be like, hey, we're on our way to the beach. Let's swing by Pennsylvania, maybe Philly or Scranton. So that's why they're doing what they're doing. It's a key constituency that they need, and it's an easy swing by logistically.
Well, switching gears a little bit, Sean, but sticking on the same overarching theme of swing states and key demographics and everything like that. I mean, probably the last remaining huge question when it comes to the Republican ticket is who's the other half of that ticket going to be? And, this is that time of the year where politicos like me and you love to talk about the Veep stakes and all of that. Who should it be? And what kind of factors should go into that decision for President Trump?
It's funny you asked that. I did a thing on my show the other day where I put my bet into an envelope and I mailed it to my producer in LA. And we will open that on my show when he does to see if I'm right. But I will tell you this. If I had to give you a list right now, I would say it's probably Tom Cotton, J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio. I still have a problem with Rubio in Florida. I don't know. I hear that people are talking about ways to get around this. But people have to remember that Florida has 30 electoral votes. The Constitution prohibits the vice president and the president both getting them from any given state. So it logistically doesn't make sense. There are talks that potentially Rubio would resign and then move out of state. I think that's too complicated. I think Trump is going to go someone that he feels like he has a relationship with, that understands the dynamic, meaning they have to be the Robin to his Batman.
Yeah, I think that's totally right. And to your point as well, as a Floridian myself, I couldn't agree with you more strongly about Marco Rubio. The text of the 12th Amendment is actually pretty clear on this one, to be honest with you. They managed to get around it with Bush Cheney in 2000, but Cheney had long-standing
obviously the law really well. And the bottom line is they didn't get around it in 2020, right? I mean, Cheney just sort of knew it and said, great, I'll move back to Wyoming. I still own houses there. But again, it's not just moving. Remember, the state that you move to has to allow you to become a voter quickly. Some states say that you have to be there for months. So in the case of Rubio, he would have to move back and to somewhere and establish residency quick. I get it's possible, but it's just one more dynamic and one more challenge. In the case of Dick Cheney in 2000, he'd represented Wyoming in the Congress. They still had land and property there. It made sense and no one was going to challenge it. I would be very concerned about making sure if you're going to make a bold move like that with a Rubio or a Byron Donalds, that you had that thing 6 ways to Sunday locked down, because the last thing you need is a challenge when it comes to the Electoral College and the 30 electoral votes that Florida would be clearly in the Trump column.
Yeah, no, I strongly agree with you, Sean. And for what it's worth, my own personal 2 cents is I've been an outspoken advocate for J.D. Vance on those Rust Belt blue wall state grounds. That kind of is basically my argument. But in any event, I guess we'll see, and hopefully you're gonna open up that envelope with your producer, and hopefully you'll be correct at the end of the day. But Sean Spicer is the host of the Sean Spicer Show right here on the First TV. Thanks for joining us, Sean.
As always, thank you for having me.